Ladies, gentlemen, and others, on today's episode, we have the pleasure of welcoming our first musician on the pod, and I'm so grateful. It's someone who's lent her voice to countless hit songs across so many different industries. From having performed in over 200 concerts in 8 countries to selling millions of copies of her albums, we truly have a global musical sensation with us here today. Welcome to the pod, Smita. You are so multi-talented. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Aanam. Had heard so many good things about you. I look forward to this too.
Thank you. I want to just start off with understanding more about your musical career because I feel like it's so fascinating to me. I've always been jealous of people with great voices. I sound particularly odd today, but normally speaking also, I feel like people with great voices have always fascinated me. So talk me through your journey and tell me what brought you here.
I was 16 when I first went on a television show, which was hosted by the legendary S.P. Balasubramaniam, and I happened to pass. I didn't even know what I was going to do after going on the show. I was barely, I think, in my 9th grade, maybe, when I was on the show, or 10th grade, and then I didn't understand. And back then, there was not so many television channels and so many reality shows. It was one of the first at that point, and I had no clue what was going to come out of it, but I ended up winning episode after episode after episode, and then I realized, okay, maybe I can also sing. I knew I could sing as a child, but I didn't know if I could do it professionally, and I didn't have the exposure. But my parents were always very encouraging of, me taking up art as a career. When I didn't even know what that meant. So I think it all started from there, and without parents like mine, I wouldn't have been able to do it at an early age as 16. But my first album happened when I was 18. This was right after the Paduta Tega ended. It took us a year for production, video, because I had no idea what to do, right? And there was no music video scene in South back then. It had probably just started in Bombay. A few artists, I think there was Alicia Chenoy, Sunita Rao, Anaida, all of them who had a couple of albums that had come out by then, but nothing in South. And we didn't think of doing something in Telugu because I didn't think an industry like that existed there. So we did the first album music video, which Ahmed Khan shot back then. This was 1999. That released, and on the edit table, when Ahmed was getting the song edited, Archie's had a label then. So Archie's Music, the head of Archie's saw the video getting edited and said, we want this on our list. So that's how my first step into the Hindi, the pop scene happened. And I had so many messages. My mom used to read them because I barely knew how to operate any of these things. So saying that being a Telugu girl, you're doing Hindi stuff, why don't you bring this out in Telugu? And that's how we ended up in 6 months getting the lyrics written in Telugu, and the same album releasing in Telugu, which really created. So a few weeks ago, when there was an interview with another channel, they said, so you're the OG of pop and independent music. I was like, what is OG? I said, I'm so sorry, but what is OG? Said, original gangster. I said, okay, great. I like that term. I'm going to take that. Said, I'm so, my social media and all of that, I keep wondering how people have the energy to actually do all of this, right? And then it's become so important today to be connected for many reasons, and I understand that now. So that's how illiterate I was when
No, I love it, because then it's been a whole journey for you. I love that you said you had support from your parents, because so many people lack that, especially at a young age.
So when I got this call after a call for participating in the show, I said, how do they know I sing? How do they know that I... So she didn't tell me, but she secretly sent a tape that she recorded when I was singing randomly and sent it to this address, which was SPB's house address at that time in Chennai.
Oh my God.
And that's how it got. And apparently there were thousands of tapes going every single day for auditions for the show. I don't know how it got picked. I think it also, a lot of luck, also timing, all of those play a role, I believe, in careers, especially for artists.
Yeah.
So
she wasn't just supportive, she was fundamentally instrumental.
Yeah, she was the one who actually, I think she wanted to be a singer. She wanted to be a musician, an artist. But in her time, she definitely didn't know how to do that. She found a way to do it with me and saw talent, so she pushed me this direction.
Do you have a clear memory, or like the first time you performed, let's say for a live audience at one of your concerts? Is that something? Did you have her first of all with you when you performed the first time?
So I did perform. I cannot point out the first performance because I always sang, like for every occasion I was singing. But I remember after my album release, the first performance was in my hometown. And it was for New Year's, the 31st night. And it was the biggest New Year thing happening at that point in in Vijayawada. Unfortunately, my grandmom had to undergo a heart situation and a surgery exactly that same week as this performance. So we were all like split, like between hospital, supporting me with performance and all of those things. But yes, I remember it very, very clearly. It was 31st December, I think, the year 2000, the millennium year, actually.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Because you go from, like you said, you've been singing all your life, but to be singing to a live audience professionally. I mean, your first concert, technically, right?
Yeah, with a big audience, yes. It was interesting, but it was very home-like for me because I grew up in that place. I knew so many people that were there. So I did have a little butterflies that day, because I didn't have mom around me at that point. She was coming and going, but she was stressed because her mom was also going through a health condition then. But since you're asking me now, I never thought about it. Now all these memories flash. Yeah.
Do you remember any particularly low moments? Because I feel like what happens on social media, what happens typically when you're doing any of these, media bites, I feel like aspiring singers, musicians always land up seeing the highs. But I think what people sometimes forget is that people who live in the public eye, in the spotlight, also have so many low moments that don't necessarily get shared. I'm someone that strives always to share my lows because I'm one of those people that's really passionate about breaking the barrier, that fourth wall, and making people realize that everything you see is not everything that's truly going on in this person's life. There's more. Is there anything that made you at any point of time feel like, okay, you know what, this isn't for me, now I should walk away? Those moments when you feel weakened by certain things around you, or any kind of lows that may not be related to your career per se, but made you feel like, okay, I need to step away from this for a bit. Did you ever have any of those through your journey?
Actually, I mean, while you're asking me this question, I was trying to think very hard, but frankly, none, because not that we all go through things like every other artist, like all the artists, right? But I think success or failure didn't really change anything for me. Or if somebody or something or some space wasn't for me, I would naturally stay away from it and it would never bother me again, right? So it's never taken me through a point where, okay, this is not for me. Like I said, I saw project success at a very, very young age, which was also fortunate in a way because it didn't get to my head. I didn't know what it meant. So I just enjoyed it very organically, didn't realize that it was a big thing. I thought it was just like any other thing, right? It wasn't, for sure, because all my friends were going to school and college and I was performing, I was recording, I was shooting, but I didn't know anything and it just happened. When I look back and say, oh, this was my biggest hit, we sold millions of copies, so there's no copies anymore. I feel fortunate to have seen the full the whole evolution of music, from a cassette to a CD to a pen drive to a nothing, and just online, you just go on your phone and listen to music now. From piracy, from pirating cassettes and CDs to all music being everywhere. So I think the journey was more important than the ups and downs, and I also think that we created this space which was very independent for me, which nobody else was part of. Right, it was the first mover, first person in that, like they said, OG, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to also understand, because you sing in so many different languages, is are you as comfortable in every language? Like, what do you, like, for example, what do you think in? Like, for me, I think in both English and Hindi, depending on what I'm speaking at the time. So, how do you, from a professional standpoint, switch between this when you're singing in different languages? Was that something that you had to work on?
So I can read, write, and speak Hindi, Telugu, and English. These are the three languages. Not great at Hindi, but I can read, write Hindi. I understand.
That's
I can
fantastic.
Speak a little bit. So when I write my songs in Hindi, if I sing in Hindi, I write them in Hindi. If I sing in Telugu, I write them in Telugu. And for the other languages like Tamil or Kannada or any other language, Sanskrit is written mostly like Hindi, right? Yeah. So it's very close. So I've written in the language that I've sung in most of the time, except maybe 3 or 4. But I understand the lyrics and the meaning, because I feel like unless I feel the lyric, I cannot sing. I can't do justice to the song. So yeah, I think it hasn't been difficult to sing any other language, but I always asked, I'm very, very OCD about a lot of things. So I have people sitting there. I ask them, is this okay? Is this exactly the way it should be? Don't give me any freedom because I'm that particular language.
It's not your mother tongue.
It's not my mother tongue. But so I'm very specific. So it wasn't difficult. In fact, it's a learning experience. I love singing other languages that I don't know.
That's amazing. When you do let's say an Instagram live, do you have people coming on and asking you to sing on like a live and in a different language? How do you deal with something like that? And do you go ahead and do these things on Instagram live?
I'm quite bad with my social media. I'll get better. But when I have some shows that are happening and I have to come on air. So mostly people ask me for my hit song, like my songs that they've always liked or heard or all of that. But people asking me for some other language is rare. For my own hits or something they really like, I get a lot I requests.
Why do you say you're bad at social media? Because I've skimmed through your page and I feel like it's so good.
I have somebody... Really?
Yeah.
I always thought I was very boring on my social media.
No, I think we're all so critical about ourselves when it comes to social media because we'll end up comparing our pages with others. But I feel like, no, you have to be you, right?
So it doesn't... I don't put up too much about... my posts are very, I would say... not the way they should be. They can be more often or more information or more stuff because there's a lot going on in my life. And I end up not taking pictures. I end up not wanting to make an effort to post. But I am slowly trying to get there.
But I think that's a process, right? For so many people where social media doesn't come as organically to them. It's a little bit more of an effort. Let's say.
Yeah.
You are sometimes on the fence about should I live in this moment or should I document it. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a process. Like even for me, I am a creator and social media comes so organically to me. But having said that, even for me, if I'm vlogging on a day, there will be that moment where I'm like, wait, you know what? I want to fully soak in this moment and then I'll record it after so that there's some presence of this in my vlog. But I know that I truly lived that moment. So don't beat yourself up about it because I feel like a lot of people go through that emotion where they're like, we can do more. There's social media, everyone's always doing more. I don't think anyone will ever be fully satisfied with their own social media presence. But as long as you're you, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So you don't manage your own social media. You have someone that takes care of it.
I would like to, but then you'll see nothing on my page if I'm managing my own.
You are too
page.
Self-critical for social media. My God.
So I'll not put anything up. So especially when I have something releasing and I need to do some work and I know I will not do it. So I have someone doing it. And if they're not doing it the way I want it, then I'll be like, okay, let's leave it. So halfway through, you'll see nothing happening again.
Like you started out with music, you did a little bit of acting, then there's been production. And now you're venturing into the more entrepreneurial space.
So I've been an entrepreneur from the time I was 20 years old because my first business... that I registered was a clothing brand. I did a lot of cottons because I wear a lot of cottons and comfortable clothes. So we started, and then post that, Bubbles is a brand that I started, which was when I was 22. And we are a luxury chain of salons, hair and beauty salons across Andhra and Telangana. And Old School was a natural extension to it, I feel, because ever since, in fact, the year that Bubble started, I always wanted a brand that we built. And I traveled everywhere. I took my dad. I said, let's go see. We went to these world skincare fairs, all of that, in a few places. And I said, maybe we can bring these products to India, that, maybe this product we can label this. Somehow I wasn't comfortable with the feeling of white labeling anything.
Yeah.
And then I realized after Old School coming to this point where we have our own manufacturing and all our 50 plus formulations and all of that we built ourselves, I feel like now I understand that over 90% of the brand's white label, right? And then I feel like this couldn't have been possible for Old School because of the kind of process that is involved in bringing one bottle out, right? From the fruit, from the vegetable to the product, to the end product. So I couldn't trust anyone with doing the same thing.
And private labeling is a huge thing globally. It's not even just India. It's all over the world.
Yeah.
As a brand founder myself, I remember when I was going from factory to factory, trying to figure out what labs and factories I want to work with. That's the first thing people want to sell to you. They're like, no, just take ready and we'll slap your name on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who will make the formula the way I want it, and then it stays custom to me. Because if you're going to take it and sell it to everyone, how
There's
is it
no
any
point.
different?
It's just the name and how you market it, right?
Exactly.
Then,
I mean, what's the point? How long did you take in that phase from figuring out I don't want to private label, don't want to white label, to figuring, okay, this is my setup and this is how I'm going to work on the launch of my brand?
From the day from the day Old School, the name Old School was decided till today, it is 6 years plus.
And now you are ready to go, ready to roll.
Ready to go in May is when we plan to get into the market. And the first bunch of samples went out, were made in our kitchen because it was Shivi's birthday, my daughter's, I think, 5th birthday, if I'm not wrong. When we had all her friends, about 40 of her little friends and their moms come for her birthday party. I said, return gifts why should only the kids get candy and pencils for return gifts? Let's give something that the moms also can use, mom and baby. So we made these baskets with a hair oil which had over 70 herbs infused in it. Then we made a body oil which had carrots, beetroots, pomegranates, and all of that cooked in our kitchen. And then we had a scrub which had cucumbers, sugar, lemon, and all of that, and some herbs in it. Said, let's package all of this, write a story about how each one was made, and give it to the kids and parents as gifts. Almost every single. And I actually still have a photo of the packaging. So these were glass bottles and we tied these jute ropes around it to cover the entire, almost 80% of the glass bottle, labeled them, put tags on it, wrote stories about it, and made baskets, cane baskets that with handles that can carry all of these things in it. And almost everybody called back asking for more product.
Oh my God.
And I didn't have that much because we made just enough and little more maybe, and everything got done. So I was so thrilled that, okay, now people are really liking these kind of old school things. Why don't we create this as a brand? And I've been thinking of doing this ever since I started Bubbles. I've been thinking of, let's build something. And then I said, here we have a solution. And then I started learning my own, studying formulation a little bit. And it's like doing an MBA versus actually starting a business. So I always learn after you actually have real practical experience in anything, like be it my entrepreneurial journey. I started businesses, ran them, and then went to INSEAD for a year to do my graduation in business management and leadership. Similarly, I started this brand and then said I want to even learn how to make. So tomorrow, if I have to make them, I should know how to make them.
True.
And I always every product that you'll see in the brand will have pretty much every single ingredient has been researched by me, or my hand would be part of every bottle that will be sold, because I'm very passionate about things that I want to take up or do and be involved at every step, be it label to package to design to your logo to the ingredients that are in the bottle and the way they are processed and the way they're packed.
There's something very beautiful about a founder that is actually involved in every step of the way, right? Because the more hands-on you are, the more compassion your product and your brand, your ethos really is built on, and people see that. And I'm sure it's a very validating feeling when you're doing something as a return present and people are like, we want more of this. That has to be a very lovely feeling to have. Can you tell us more about the kind of products you're launching with? Because today in present, when we're recording, we're sitting on April 24th. So in May is when you're launching. What are the range of products that you're launching with?
So our first bunch of product, we're launching 32 products. I realized it was a lot of effort to, more than creating them, making sure all the packaging, we got the licenses also for all the products and the factory manufacturing, all of that. But when you're actually designing the packaging and sending it out for printing, there's so many back and forths. Everything is linked to another. And it's not one box, it's 32 different SKUs. So, it went mad for 2 months just looking at the number of iterations and the small word letter changes that had to go into so many packaging.
Nobody understands this more than me with you, trust me.
So it was very, it was like 10 people doing the same thing over and over and over again for 2 months or more. What we thought could have been done in February is going to May, only because we had all of these things that had to fall in place. The product line, we have some really, really interesting product lines. And like I said, my OCD will not allow me to launch something that I will not use. And I'm not the kind who'll use too many products, but I have an eye for it and I understand textures. I understand ingredients, and I feel comfortable with certain things that actually end up doing very well in the market. This is my experience in the last 20 years, that I go touch something and say, okay, this is something I like. And then I know in a couple of months from then that product really has taken off very well. So I felt like, okay, so if I really like what we are selling, they will be liked by people. So it's 32 products. We have face wash powders, which are my favorite line, because we have one line with red sandalwood that has the face wash powder. It has a face wash gel wash. We have a scrub mask and a moisturizer. Then we have an SPF with cocoa, almond and olive. That's an SPF 36. Yes. And we have an interesting line with Indian spices. And that really helps clear off any skin issues. I think that will be a very, very interesting line, because it is for people who have skin that breaks out, or acne prone, or pollution, or you're out too much. That's one line. We have a mango line where we extract mangoes every summer, hundreds of them in drums, and then make wine out of it and create products from them. And we will have more fruit lines like this coming out depending on the season and timing.
This sounds so varied, and I love the sound of it, because it feels like you've really got the nerve of products and types and things that are missing from the market. And I feel like the fact that you're in bath, body and skin is such a great space, because the Indian consumer today is becoming more and more aware of the things they like and dislike. And, at the end of the day, I feel like in general, consumers today have far more knowledge and far more intent to know more about the
Yeah.
product. So the fact that you are so deeply driven and involved and hands-on is going to make such a beautiful journey to watch, even as someone on the outside. I can definitely tell you that.
Thank you so much.
And 32 is a big number to launch with. So kudos to you for being able to pull that off right off the bat. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. So we were thinking, is that enough? Because it's like starting off something and not knowing what the right thing
No,
to do
it is. So I mean, it makes for a grand entry, is the way I think I would put it. Because typically when brands start out, they typically start out with 1 or 2 categories, and then of course about maybe 5 or 10 unique SKUs under each category, right? The fact that you're going in guns blazing with 32 unique SKUs to launch with is fantastic, because it shows the confidence that you have in your product line. You've spent 6 to 7 years working, formulating, developing, and when you're describing the products, I'm trying to figure, like as you were saying, and I was thinking, is there anything similar in the market or a brand that seems to find itself in this niche? And I can't think of anything particular, because the ranges that I think we do have in the market that are in those categories operate on a very international ingredient level, and what you're saying sounds so much more Indian, that I think it'll have its own identity very easily connectable, yeah, for the Indian audience. So more power to you, and all the best with this launch. I know I'm going to be keeping my eyes out on it.
Thank you so much. That makes me so happy. And it actually feels good to hear this from you.
No, absolutely. My pleasure. Is there anything else about your journey you would like to share with us? Because I feel like we talked about you as a musician, and of course about Bubbles. We've also talked about your upcoming venture. I feel like is there anything else you'd like to share with us that has become a part of your core memory over the past couple decades?
So I've, like you said, you into music, into production or business, all of that, right? Sometimes it went to a point from not even able, like when you ask me the list of things that I do, I actually may miss out talking about 2 or 3 things, because there's always so much going on. With Old School, I decided that everything for me now will fall into Old School, because it will become a lifestyle brand. And it's no more going to be just a skincare brand. It will start with skincare, but we want to do Old School jewelry. We want to do Old School precious jewelry, accessories, Old School home-related stuff, nutrition. So it has no limitation. Like with Old School, it's like it was like building. It's been like you're actually at one point I'm thinking whether we're building a skincare brand or we're telling stories.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Because I think brands these days forget that selling a product is not the way. Is not the way to acquire customers. It's telling stories.
Yeah.
It's telling people what your brand is about and what your ethos is, that really makes people want to come to you. Because when it comes to product, there's so many options.
Yeah.
It's the why that really ropes them in.
And then this came in very naturally with the brand, because storytelling is part of, like, we grew up listening to stories.
And you're an artist.
Yeah.
It's what must come naturally to you, irrespective.
Yeah. So we have these apsaras on the boxes, if you see them. Each of them has a name. Each of them, they have a name because they look like that name. It was so this one evening we were sitting, I have friends, most of us are in the creative industry, some of them are actors, some directors, some producers, all of us, we were all hanging out, and one evening I said, today I'm super excited, I have to mark this date on my calendars, because it took us 1 year to crack apsaras. We had some pencil sketches that were beautiful. And then I said, no, they have to be colored and look this way, this way, this way. Then we gave some inspirations to the artist. We couldn't get the end product the way we wanted. Then I had to sit on every detail of a garment, a color, a jewelry, the way the apsara looked and the postures. Finally, that was the day when we said, yes, we got 7 apsaras right. We said, let's... As I played, I said, okay, all of you just come. Evening, I said, I'm playing this on the screen, and we have to name these apsaras now, because they are our mascots, and they are the storytellers of the products. Right? We have an apsara called Maya, who looks like Maya. who will talk about the 63 herb hair oil and how from her heirloom, her ancestors brought this recipe, and how old school brought it to you in a bottle.
How beautiful.
So we have that story. So that's Maya. Then we have an Apsara called Meera. She's a Muslim Apsara, and she has that whole Nizami, Hyderabadi story of how that Apsara and the product line that she talks about comes from where, and how old school has built that and brought it to you in a bottle. So I think, it was so much of storytelling. The amount of content I can write is like an Amar Chitra Katha and not a skincare product anymore.
But that's where you're going to get the audience base. Everyone wants to know the why. And I think it's so fascinating that you have it so clear in your mind. And then people get to see it. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. So I was actually running one handloom, like I mentioned, my love for fabric handlooms, right? So I had this store called Alayam with myself and a very, very close designer friend of mine. We were very passionate about handlooms, weavers. So sat with weavers, got them designed. About 9 years or 10 years I ran this store. And just few months ago I said, okay, I'm going to consolidate. I hate saying I shut that store because I couldn't physically, do so many things. I said, let this slowly become a part of old school, right? Old school handlooms. We bring in the handlooms in different seasons within old school as a brand. So it becomes lifestyle brand. And so I think for me, everything that I've worked on, everything that I've learned over the last 2 decades is going to be seen as old school.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Your journey is so fascinating. You're so multi-hyphenated, really, honestly, because you've done so many things. And I look forward to seeing what old school brings to life across all its verticals. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Thank you so
sharing
much,
your
Anna.
Journey, being so just honest and open about all your experiences. I really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Aanam. My pleasure. And Aanam, thank you so much for having me here. Before we close, so I have a question for you. I'm going to do the little role reversal here and ask you how old school you are and what makes you old school. Because with old school, we plan to build community of creative people, artists, of people talking about why they're old school and what makes them that.
That's a very interesting question because I can't exactly pinpoint to, something to the T, but I've always been called and told that I'm very old school. I've always been told that I've also always been told that I was always older than my years. So I feel like in my head I'm old school because...
You're married to a South Indian, so that also makes you old school.
Really?
I think so.
Having a Tamilian husband makes me old school.
I think so.
I love that. Another feather to my hat. I think I've just always been old school because I sometimes joke about it between my mum and I, in fact, that I was born in the wrong era. It's a long-standing joke. I was apparently, I don't remember this, but my mum tells me this. I was about 14 or 15 when I told my mum that I was going to, I'm so old school that I was going to marry someone a decade older than me. And when I got Gerard home the first time and I said, this is the man that I'm going to marry, we're a decade apart, we're 11 years apart. So she was like, you were right. See, I always knew you were so old school, you were going to land up with someone much older than you. And I'm like, okay. So I guess it does make me, quite old school in the best possible way.
Yeah, no, I think old school is beautiful.
There's something very classic about just, being old school.
Because our roots are all that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a value system that I think that is common to identify
and all
with.
of us have to some point end up going that route.
Yeah.
How far away can we go?
I love that. Thank you for asking me that, and thank you for being on the pod once again. I have loved and enjoyed this conversation so much, and it's so different from all of our other podcast episodes because I feel like your journey is truly, truly, truly unique, and in the direction you're heading to now is just going to make it even more interesting to watch.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.